Hello folks, it's Mr. Neil here, and in this video we're going to be looking at HTML forms from the Website Design and Development Unit of Higher Computer Science. For HTML forms, you need to be able to describe, exemplify and implement them, and we need to implement all the different elements that can be used to make up a form. And these are various different inputs including text, number, text area, radio and submit, and lastly select. And we also need to be able to describe, exemplify and implement a variety of different validation, including length, presence and range. All aspects of a form go inside a form element, and this is used in the form tag. When the user submits a form, the content of the form is usually passed to a server for processing. This is what we go within the action portion of the form tag. However, the process of linking with a server is beyond what is required at higher computing science, so therefore the action portion of the form tag is left blank. If you continue to advanced higher computing science, you will then look at how to link your form with a server, usually a database. Here we have our first three form elements. The first one is called text, and it goes inside a input tag. Within that input tag, we specify that the type of input we're looking for is text. We then give our input a name. This is useful for when we're passing the information to the server so that it can identify the information that it is receiving. And lastly, we have size, and this is how much space the input will take up on the user's screen. When we preview this, we get the square box to dictate that it's an input. We will be able to enter into this input text and numerical data as it is a text type, and the input itself is 30 long. Next we have number, and you'll notice that a number input is very similar to a text input, with the exception that we specify the type as number, and therefore we will only be able to enter in numerical values. Our third form element is slightly different in that it has its own tag, text area. And within the text area, we give it a name as per the previous inputs, and we specify the size of the text area in terms of rows and columns. And again, this is how much space it will take up on the user screen. If the developer wishes to include some pre-populated text within the text area, this can go inside the text area tag. Our next form of input is radio buttons, and radio buttons again go inside the input tag. We specify the type of the input being radio, we specify the name of the input, and lastly the value of the input. And this is the value that will be sent to the database or our server for processing. And this is what the input will look like when it loads. With radio buttons, if we add the checked option to a radio button, when the websites load, that associated radio button will be checked. The next input that we're going to look at is select. Select can be used for drop down and multi-selects. We specify the select tag, and as with all the previous options, we specify a name. Within the select tag, we then identify all the different options that the user can select. Again, specifying a value that will be sent to the server, and then within the opening and closing option tag is what the user will see. So this is what it looks like in the browser when I first load it. If I click on the drop down, I then get to see all the different options within this element. If we add to the select tag the option of size, this means that when the element loads, it will show the first four elements, or in our case, all of the elements. If we add to the select tag the option multiple, this means that the user can select multiple options from our select item. The last element and the most important element is a submit element, also known as a button. Every form needs a button to ensure that the data is processed. This is normally when the data would be sent to the server, but as you know, this is beyond what we need to know at hire. So what we do is we insert some JavaScript to ensure that there's some sort of notification that the form has been submitted. We can add to our form a range of different validation. The first validation is max length. Here we have added a max length of 250 to our text area and a max length of 30 to our telephone number. This means that the user will be unable to enter more than these characters into these elements. We can add minimum and maximum values to an element. So in this case, to our number input, we have specified that the minimum number accepted is 5 and the maximum number allowed is 50. We could just have a minimum number, or we could just have a maximum number, or we could have both. Lastly, we have a presence check. And this is instigated by adding the word required to the input tag, and this means that the user has to enter information into this field. So there we have it. We have looked at all the different elements that we can use within a form. If you want to have a play about an exploration of these elements, then load up the celebrations order form, as it includes all the elements that you need to know. If you're looking for a practical task, you can complete the tickets page for the Edinburgh Zoo website. The instructions and the wireframes are included in the project files, which is available at the web address or the QR on your screen.